Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
My name's Catherine. I'm an alcoholic. It's really nice to be shown in my home group, and it was really nice to have Mary. I was thinking, I knew she was down here today, and part of me was thinking, I hope she's there tonight. That was really lovely, and thanks to the first two speakers. I identify with both of you, but I mean particularly, Jamie, I identify with you, and it is, as Mary said, I am 20 years sober today. I had my last, it wasn't my last drink that I had on the 15th of April 1996, but that was the day that they took me off the Librium and everything else that I was on when I went into detox. So I always class this as my first day sober because it was my first day off everything. But I think I got sober like a week before that. I stopped drinking a week before that. And just one thing out of the shares that kind of really struck me was, and Jamie said, where would I be? Where would I be without Alcoholics Anonymous? Where would I be without this program? And I don't know where I don't actually think that I would be alive, because I'm the type of alcoholic that I think I would have ended up dead. Once heard it said that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is like a program of suicide prevention, and that's kind of what it is for me. And we're all different. Everyone's got different stories and different backgrounds, but that's kind of what it's like for me. And I never felt like I fitted in, and I never felt a part of. And I just didn't. And I started drinking, and I just loved it. I loved the effect of alcohol straight away. It did something to me that it doesn't do to normal people. I loved being out of my face. So I went from somebody who didn't feel a part of and didn't feel like they fitted in to somebody that loved it and got the taste for alcohol straight away. I never drank just to have a drink in my whole life. I never ever did that. I drank to get drunk. That's why I drank. To this day, I will never understand people that go out and have one drink. I remember when I'd been sober a couple of years, going on holiday with my mate Zoe. Oh my God, she was one of my nice friends from school. And we went on this bar crawl. It was like an 1830s oldies. See, life doesn't stop when you get sober. I've been on 1830s oldies and everything. I'm too old for them now, but I have been on them. And you got a free drink in every bar you went in. And I was obviously giving her my free drink. She's like, oh no, I don't like the taste of that. I'm like, don't like the taste of it? What are you on about? You just drink it. I just cannot get that. And then we'd go in somebody, she drinks Malibu and Coke. She's like, oh, that's not real Malibu. I'm like, who cares? Do you know what I mean? I don't care. I didn't care whether it was real Malibu or whether it didn't taste nice. Do you know what I mean? It was drink. I drank it because I drank to get drunk. And I always took it that step further than everybody else. I was always the one that was absolutely paralytic. I was always the one that had to go to the nightclub after the pub. I was always the one that wanted to go to the party after the nightclub, because bars weren't open 24 hours back then like they are now. You can party all night now anyway, can't you? But I always took it that step further, and I always did things that were embarrassing. I always seemed to end up in situations that were horrible. Some of the situations that I ended up in when I was drinking were not nice. I had consequences right from the beginning. And, so then I'm someone that doesn't feel like they fit in, doesn't feel a part of. I start drinking. I'm powerless over alcohol straight away. I get the taste for it. I can't stop. Then I get consequences. So then I get guilt and I get shame added on top of this person that didn't feel like they fitted in. And I'll never forget them mornings when I used to wake up. And I always knew people had blackouts when they were drinking. I seem to always bloody remember what I had done. And I'd wake up in the morning and the memories would start to come back, and it'd be like my stomach would turn over. Not with feeling physically sick from the booze, but just with the shame and the embarrassment. I'd be like, oh my God. And and what fixes that? What makes that any better? The only thing that makes that any better is going out and getting drunk again. So then I'd go out and I'd get drunk again. I'll get the taste for alcohol because I'm powerless over alcohol. I end up in situations I don't want to be in, and I wake up in the morning and I feel the guilt and the shame again. And it went on like that, and it got worse. Just like Jamie said, if you are alcoholic, and we're not going to tell you whether you're one of us or whether you're not one of us, you've got to diagnose yourself in Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't tell anybody anything. You may be an alcoholic, you may not be. Most people don't end up here by accident, do you know what I mean? But there is a fine line between a heavy social drinker and an alcoholic, I know that, but, you know, most people don't end up here by accident, but you've got to diagnose yourself. And, but that was the vicious cycle of alcoholism that I was in, and it was going to get worse. And if you are like us, and if you do identify in this meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, the chances are it will get worse. Now, you may do something to make it get better for a little bit. You might meet somebody, you might get married, you might have some kids and think, oh yeah, this has fixed it for a little bit. But over time, in my experience of 20 years being around Alcoholics Anonymous and seeing lots of people come in this meeting, I mean, really, this meeting, we should be hiring bloody Plymouth Argyle football ground for the amount of people that have been in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's a savage disease. And I think the thing that makes it so savage when people die in Alcoholics Anonymous is you don't need to die in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no need for it. And it's such a shame, and I don't know why some people get step one, and I don't know why some people don't. It baffles me. But all I know is that the greatest blessing I've received in Alcoholics Anonymous is step one. The greatest blessing I've got is that I know I am powerless over alcohol, and I know I cannot drink, and I know I need to do whatever it takes to stay sober. And sometimes I've walked down this road of Alcoholics Anonymous, sometimes I've skipped, sometimes I've bloody crawled, thinking, you know, I've been through a fair old bit in Alcoholics Anonymous. Most of it I've put myself through. You know, I really have manufactured my own misery and made a lot of mistakes. But anyway, so my drinking, so back to my drinking. So that's what it was like, the vicious cycle of alcoholism. And I arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous via a treatment centre when I was 18. I'd got to the point where I attempted suicide when I was 18. It was a pathetic half-hearted attempt. I tried to slash my wrist with a blunt knife. I've still got the scars. I'm thinking of having them lasered off, actually, because I'm like been sober so long now and I work with like proper people and everything. And, but yeah, so I tried to slash my wrist with a blunt knife, and I remember taking, I'd gone out this one night and I'd got into an awful situation, like I quite often did, and I'd come home and I was back at my mum's because I'd been chucked out of all my family. I started off at my mum's, my mum chucked me out, went to live with my dad fell out with my dad, went to live in a flat, fell out with them, went to my grandma's, and I would fallen out with my grandma and I'd been chucked out of there, and I was back at my mum's. And, I took quite a lot of other substances as well as the alcohol, but I mean, I'm alcoholic really through and through. That was my main thing, but I was messed up in all that sort of underworld as well, if you will. And I was back at my mum's and I took this overdose, and I remember, I was pissed up, and I remember opening my mum's medicine drawer. I remember there being Beecham's capsules there, so I know that's something that I took to try and kill myself. And some other bits and pieces were in the drawer. And I took all this stuff. My mum always drank brandy, so there was some brandy on the side, so I gulped it down and went to bed and woke up, felt really sick. And I went down, and thankfully I woke up and was sick, and then I went back to get in bed again, and I got up in the morning. I mean, poor mum, do you know what I mean? She's like, right, come on, get ready and go to work. I said, I can't go to work. I said, well, I tried to kill myself last night. I mean, poor mum, so she takes me off to the doctors, and they said, well, we need to get her into hospital. So they got me into hospital. It was too late to pump my stomach, so they said, maybe drink charcoal. I don't think they do that anymore. And I'm laid in hospital bed, my lips were all black from drinking this bloody charcoal, looked like crap, and my whole thing, there was all these other substances that were in my bloodstream and that as well, that had been taken. My family were all distraught about that. Oh my God, she's taking drugs as well, and, you know, and drinking. And my family were all stood around the hospital bed, you know, grandma coming, who's all dramatic. She's dramatic anyway, but she'd come in like, oh, crying, and they were having meetings, what we're going to do, we're going to sort her out. And I swear to God, when I was in that hospital bed, all I thought about was me. And to be honest, I hated people getting upset and that about me, because it made me feel guilty. And I couldn't handle feeling guilty. I couldn't handle facing what I was doing to other people, because actually it was all about me. And anyway, thankfully, I ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous via a treatment centre, like I said, and I found out I was alcoholic via seeing a psychiatric consultant, and it cost me £60, probably would cost a lot more now, but it cost me £60 for him to tell me that I was alcohol dependent, was the word that he used. He said, you know, alcohol dependent. I was in there a couple of minutes. He said, you need to come into treatment. So I went into a priory first. It was like a bloody hotel, that was. So I was in a priory first, and then they sent me down here to Plymouth to a secondary treatment centre. I was 18 years old at this point. And they said, you're so sick. So anyone that thinks, she was only young when she comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, believe me, I was really sick because I went in for 6 weeks. They said I needed to come down here for 3 months. I was in a treatment centre here for 3 months and they said, we want you to stay longer because I was so sick. So I did 6 months in treatment. And for me, and this is no reflection on anything, but it's just for me, I am an alcoholic and I am the type of alcoholic that is described in the big book, in the basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am the type that, in the doctor's opinion where it says, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve when they're sober. That's the type of alcoholic I am. I am the type of alcoholic that not only can I not cope when I'm drinking, I can cope even less when I'm sober. And I went through a treatment centre and I got worse and I didn't get better. And I left the treatment centre and couple of things I did right. One was I used to go to meetings every day, but I wasn't working and I was living in a hostel in Stonehouse. I used to go to meetings every day. And the other thing I did right was I used to pray. And I did those couple of things, and I think I had step one. I think I knew that I was powerless over alcohol because I could see it. I couldn't really deny it when I looked at my history. I've never had just one drink, so I knew I was powerless over alcohol. And but eventually I kind of got my head around that second part of step one, that my life would become unmanageable. And what that means for me is that my life is unmanageable by me, either with or without alcohol, and I needed to find a new way of living. It says we need an entire psychic change. That's what needs to happen to us. And where do you find one of those? You find one of those here, and it's dead simple. And but I used to go to meetings and I stumbled and I was feeling like suicidal in Alcoholics Anonymous actually, because I had that first part of step where I knew I couldn't drink, because I knew for me to drink was for me to die, but I couldn't face living either. So then I was obsessively suicidal because I couldn't deal with life at all. And I remember I stumbled across this meeting and I came, and the first time I attended this meeting, but I'll clear this up now, the first time I attended this meeting was in January 1997, but I didn't make it my home group then, but that was genuinely the first time that I attended a meeting of the Road to Recovery group. And it was downstairs, and some people said there was one woman there. There wasn't. There was two. There was Dee and there was Ali there at the time. And I don't think Dee was there that night, but I think Ali was. And I came. I didn't like it, to be honest. When I look back, I don't think I did. It scared me. And I felt like everyone was so different to me. It seems like everyone was posh. I mean, there was John F. and Alexis at the time, really, when you think about it. And we really are posh. And I was like a proper scallywag. And anyway, and I used to go to the Joys of Recovery. And I got my sponsor in the Joys of Recovery at the time. And I was going there, but I did always used to come here intermittently on a Tuesday or a Friday. I used to go Joys Monday, not Tuesday or a Sunday, and I used to go Joys Monday and Friday. And I didn't make it my home group for some time. And then I was but I did eventually get a sponsor that took me through the steps. I didn't have much luck with sponsorship in my early sobriety, and that's no reflection on the sponsor, because there's different types of alcoholics. Some people can come to meetings and just not drink and be all right, and that's fine. Some people can do that. I can't do that. I'm the type of alcoholic that I need to work the steps properly, and I needed to do that. And eventually, I got a sponsor before I come to the group that took me through the steps properly. And I remember the big turning point for me was when I did my step 4 and 5. And I think the beauty of step 4 and 5 was I always blamed everybody else for my drinking and always blamed everybody else for how I was feeling. And I actually took responsibility for myself for the first time in my life. I took responsibility for me. And I haven't looked back since, really. And then I used to still come, and then I come to the meeting, and I remember saying to an old timer in the group, I said, I've been thinking about making this my home group. And the old timer said, well, why don't you then? Do you know what I mean? And I did, and that was when my recovery really took off. And then I think I got Mary as my sponsor. And that was when my recovery really started to take off, when I got involved in an active group in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think it's so important to be active. And I can't be as active as I used to be because I'm a single mum now, and it's really hard. I could probably do more than what I do, but it's hard. But if, just be active in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's like just the best thing. And it's like my sponsor always says to me, the sponsor I've got now, she always says to me, Catherine, the answer is in the answer. And the answer is always in the answer. And the answer for us is working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The answer for us is going to a meeting and thinking of somebody else. The answer for us is doing service in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's our answer. That's our solution. But still, even after 20 years sober, I think, well, no, it's this problem. Or when I ring her up and whinge, which I don't do very often nowadays, it's like, I know it's this problem, or it's that problem, or if this was sorted out, if that was sorted out. And she'd be like, Catherine, the answer is in the answer. And then I'll just go to a meeting, you share, you think of somebody else, and whatever I was moaning about, or whatever seemed a problem, is not a problem anymore. And so I went through the steps, and did my amends as well. And I remember my mum was one of my more difficult amends. I remember made amends to my mum. I said, can you forgive me? And my mum said to me, I will never forgive you for what you put me through. But she did. Do you know what I mean? I remember my stepdad was a difficult one as well, and my brother. And it took them years to kind of believe me and trust me again. But why should they trust us? Do you know what I mean? Why should they? After the way that I'd lied. But eventually they did, and I ended up having a wonderful relationship with my mum. And, we ended up getting really close, and that is one of the gifts of Alcoholics Anonymous, And, like Mary said, she did well and she got educated, and I didn't. I left school with no qualifications. I didn't even go to high school, hardly at all. And you couldn't get away with that now either. But I just didn't go. I didn't want to go, wouldn't go. That was it. And I went round to my mates and got stoned every day because that's what he did. And, so I had no qualifications at all, and I arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it took me a long time. I was such a mess. It took me years to kind of even be able to think straight. I used to be so messed up in my head. It took quite a long time for that to balance out properly. I was still quite up and down, and I think, if you are, and again, people are different. I've sponsored people that kind of go through the steps, and then they're really balanced. I think I was never balanced as that when I was new. Some people are still really up and down, and I think whatever, as long as you're doing it, just do it, and that's the most important thing. And the thing that I have always done, I have made mistakes, and I've made some humdinger of bloody mistakes. I don't think anybody has done it quite in the freaking style that I did my mistakes with. And I'll tell you something, it's like, it nearly bloody killed me. Do you know what I mean? My mistakes nearly killed me. And it's like if you go and buy, it's like you think, okay, well, if I take this action, it's going to cost me 50 quid. And then you take that action, you go to the cash register to pay, and it's like $1 million. Do you know what I mean? You think, I don't think it was going to cost me that much. And, it's so important that we take the right actions and that we try and do the spiritual and right thing. But believe me, there might be new ones in here today that are sitting there very smug thinking, no, I'm going to do it all right. I'm not going to make any mistakes, but believe me, you probably will. And, and if you stay sober, do you know what I mean? And, long enough, you're going to get some things wrong, and you don't have to drink over it. And that is the amazing thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing is worth dying over. And for me to drink is for me to die. And nothing is worth dying over in Alcoholics Anonymous at all. There is no excuse to pick up the first drink. Isn't that amazing though? Do you know what I mean? Isn't that amazing? And there's no excuse. Some of you might not like that because we always like to blame somebody. We like to blame somebody else, do alcoholics. But there is no excuse. I am responsible for my sobriety. And I'm telling you, if you want it, there is a solution here. And one thing that kills more alcoholics than anything else is that feeling of difference. Somehow this isn't going to work for me. Somehow I'm different. It can take many forms. But I remember feeling like I was different. I remember the first time I heard somebody share, the one thing that kills more alcoholics than anything else is that feeling of difference. It was like, So maybe, just maybe, this is going to work for me, because I didn't think this was going to work for me. And it has worked for me. And I've got educated in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was quite a long time sober when I actually managed to stick at something. You know, the first thing I did was an access course and a GCSE in Spanish. And I remember going to get my results for this GCSE in Spanish, and I'd got a B, and I just couldn't believe that I'd got a B in a GCSE. Like some people, like Mary, it's like, you know, nothing but degrees and everything. I got this GCSE. And now I've got postgraduate diploma and all sorts. And, you know, and I was a scallywag, and, you know, and I now, it's like, I work with doctors. I'm a career advisor with doctors, and I help them decide what medical specialty they want to go into. That's mental. I get people, psychiatrists coming to me now for help about what specialty they want to go into. And I'm like, if only they knew. And if only they knew I haven't got a maths and English GCSE. You know, these are like the top 2% of the country academically. And, it's mental. And that is all because of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everything that I have in my life is because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And believe me, I whinge and I moan, oh, I'm so tired, and my son's such hard work. Do you know what I mean? I should not have anything. Do you know what I mean? Where would I be? Coming back to the beginning, like James said, where would I be without my sobriety? I certainly wouldn't have the life that I've got. I own my own home, I've got a car, I've got a son, and he's just the best thing in the world. I've got this mental job that I think is just mental that I even do it. And it's all because of Alcoholics Anonymous. But the thing that I've always done it, no matter what, you know, like Bob Jarrell quite often shares about, don't change the game plan. And that's what a lot of people do. They change the game plan because maybe life's got really good. And they think, I don't need to do this shit anymore. Or life's got really bad and they think this has stopped working. It's not. In my experience, things always get better. And in my experience, there's a bit in the big book, and I always share it, and it's one of my favourite bits. And it says, follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently walk in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. That's a big promise. No matter what, no matter how you're feeling, if you are genuinely sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you know, the primary purpose of an AA meeting is to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. That isn't always the newcomer that's just walked in the meeting. That could be your mate that's been sober for 15 years who's going through a really hard time and needs to hear the message again. You know, that's who we're carrying the message to, the alcoholic who still suffers. And you can be any time sober and be suffering. And, you know, but the beauty is that I've never changed the game plan. You know, no matter how hard it's got. And believe me, I've had fantastic times. I mean, holidays. Yeah, me and Mary went to Los Angeles. It was fantastic listening to Clancy in his yard, as they call it. In garden, we call it. Telling us about stories. Telling us stories about, you know, it was just like the most, going out in his car for his birthday, didn't we? It was just like the best, you know, the best experiences I've had in Alcoholics. And like I said, my girls' holidays, my 1830s holidays, everything, do you know what I mean? But I've had my trials and low spots. And there's times, you know, I remember someone saying when I was quite new in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thought, oh God, I don't like the sound of that. And they said, I've had to crawl over broken glass to get what I've got today. And I thought, it's a bit dramatic, or it's a bit negative. Actually, I understand that now. I have had to crawl all over broken glass at times to get what I've got in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wouldn't change any of it. I'd be very callous, I think, if I said that from some of the people that I've harmed through my actions in Alcoholics Anonymous. I wouldn't change what I've gone through. I probably would change how I've harmed other people, but it is what it is. And, but I genuinely feel within myself that I am happier, I am more stable, more secure within myself, and just more balanced than I've ever been in my whole life. And I wouldn't be like this had I not been through everything that I've been through. So, you know, no matter what, everything gets better. In the end, sometimes it feels like it's getting worse, but it always gets better. And I just keep doing it. Not a day has gone by that I haven't got on my knees and asked the God and my understanding to keep me sober for that day. I've always been sponsored, and I've been very blessed in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've had the frigging best sponsors all the way through my sobriety. I have had all of them have been the best sponsors. And, if you're new in this group, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? You have got the best sponsors in this group of Alcoholics Anonymous that you can probably have in the country. You are very, very lucky and very blessed if you're here tonight and you're new. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love my life. I love my home group. It's been my home group for a long time. Even when it wasn't my home group, it was my home group. You can take the girl out of Rhodes, but you can't take Rhodes out of the girl. And, I love it. And I do love all of you, and you're like family. Sometimes we fall out or whatever, but it's family. And I'll shut up there. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.